Hello and welcome back to the channel for the final part of my preview of Chapter 3 of Doctor Who Flux, Once Upon Time, which at the time of recording is less than 24 hours away, and at the time of release is today. So, lots going on in this episode by the looks of things. Obviously, if you are watching this on the day of release, then not too much longer to wait for the episode itself. But these are my last minute thoughts and theories and predictions, basically about what's going to happen in the episode and approximately in what order, based on the promo images and trailer shots that we've got. I have of course done 2 other videos previewing this episode, a synopsis analysis and a cast list analysis, so please do go and check those out if you haven't already, because I will no doubt be referring back to things that I said in those videos in this video. So I really don't know where to start with this one, to be honest. There's so much going on. We don't quite know what order things are going to happen in. We don't even know what these pictures and trailer shots are telling us, quite frankly. We know what they show, for example, the Doctor and Yaz playing on a games console in Yaz's flat, but no context is given as to what these things might mean. Or again, Dan by himself at the Royal Albert Docks, or Yaz back in police uniform in what looks to be a police car and sort of turning the mirror and suddenly seeing a weeping angel appear behind her. I think in all 3 cases there, it's pretty safe to assume that they are just sort of memory flashback sequences or dream sequences or visions or some sort of thing along those lines, based on how this episode has been described to us by Chris Chibnall and Matt Strevens, the executive producer for this era. We've been told that this episode is going to be quite unique and groundbreaking and unconventional in the way that it sort of presents information to the viewer, and that we're going to get a lot of information thrown at us potentially, but not a lot of context, as these images and trailer shots show really. And I can sort of see how that might work potentially. So for example, we might get shown things like the Doctor in her sort of inverted colours coat, this new coat. We might just get shown her in some scenario in that coat without any explanation as to what's going on there, or these dream sequences and vision sequences as well. We might get shown these things, but not explicitly be told in the moment that they are dreams or visions or flashbacks or whatever, and that might only transpire later in the episode when everything comes together. To go back to the cliffhanger from War of the Sontarans and how that might be resolved, we've got a promo pic of the Doctor and Swarm, with Swarm sort of poised to click his fingers from that moment at the end of last episode. We've also got a corresponding trailer shot which sort of shows him with his fingers sort of held there in mid-air, sort of as if he's frozen, and the Doctor sort of does this turn, which some people have taken to mean that time is going to get frozen. Perhaps somehow there's going to be a glitch in Swarm's plan to run the force of time through Yaz and Vinda and the rest of the Mori and cause all this chaos. We are going to get to see a bit more of a confrontation between the Doctor and Swarm by the looks of it, because in the trailer we get 2 shots and 2 lines of dialogue as well. The Doctor asking, "What do you want?" and then Swarm saying, "To reign in hell," while laughing like a maniac. So we are going to get to see a bit more of an interaction between that pair by the looks of things. But whether Yaz and Vinda are going to escape the fate given to them in the last episode remains a mystery. And that's where I think this sort of more unconventional mode of storytelling is going to come into play. What I think is going to happen, potentially, is that we see sequences involving Yaz and Vinda, such as the stuff glimpsed in the trailer of Vinda sort of shaking Yaz's hand, and Yaz is in this uniform, and then she sort of glitches into this other persona, this sort of middle-aged man, and also the stuff in the promo images of Yaz and Vinda with the character Grand Serpent, played by Craig Parkinson, and Yaz in this sort of uniform as well. And also, of course, those shots that everybody's been talking about from the trailer, which show Yaz and Dan and Vinda all seemingly in sort of Division uniform with Division guns, like those seen in the Halloween Apocalypse and Fugitive of the Judoon. I think we're going to get shown all of that stuff without any context, any explanation. It's just going to happen in front of our eyes. We're going to watch these scenes unfold and not be told what's going on, until the end of the episode. Taking these scenes and sequences and trailer shots in isolation, it's just completely impossible to imagine what's going on here. Why is Yaz in that uniform? Why are the 3 sort of companions all members of the Division all of a sudden? What's going on there? And of course, why has the Doctor got a new coat, which by the looks of things, she's only wearing in certain scenes? It's only in the shots of her on this sort of desolate alien planet landscape, with Dan and Yaz and Vinda, and also inside the Temple of Atropos, that we see her wearing this new coat. What could this signify? I've seen so much speculation about this. Naturally, is this even the Doctor? Is this an evil version of 13, or an alternate version of 13, or a sort of future or past version of 13 compared to the version of 13 that we've seen in the previous 2 episodes? I think there could be some stock in that, I have to say. It reminds me of It Takes You Away from Series 11, in which, of course, halfway through the episode, or thereabouts, the image was flipped 180 degrees from left to right, so that everything we saw as the viewer was sort of like a mirror image of what it should be, to sort of suggest to us on a subliminal level that things are not right, things are not okay, this is dangerous, they need to get out of the Star Trek plane and return to the real world. I think potentially that in a similar manner, the coat also signifies some sort of divergence from the real world, if you like. I mean, obviously it's darker than the 13th Doctor's usual coat. Could that just literally signify this is a darker version of the same character, a more sinister version, a more evil version of the same character? Potentially so. I guess my theory here is that the Doctor and Yaz and Vinda and Dan that we see in those shots, because of course, in those first shots of them on the alien planet landscape, they're sort of outside what appears to be the Temple of Atropos, and then we also see them inside the Temple of Atropos. So what I'm thinking is perhaps that we're going to see these 4 sort of alternate versions of these characters approaching the Temple of Atropos, and we're going to see that as one strand in the episode, and that's going to run concurrently with the strand from last week of the original versions of those 4 characters, with Yaz and Vinda as the Maury, and the Doctor and Dan doing whatever they're doing. And we're just basically going to be shown those sort of 2 versions of these sets of characters, with no explanation as to what's going on, with no explanation as to whether they are the same or different or alternate versions of those characters or whatever. That's the feeling I get from this. I think we're going to see things like that and just not be given context, basically, until much later in the episode. And that's where that quote comes in from Matt Strevens, I think, in Doctor Who magazine, about this episode crediting the viewer with a certain degree of sophistication and patience, with the viewer having to work things out themselves a bit and not being presented with everything up front. There's also another very interesting strand running in this episode, somehow involving a new character called Belle, played by Thadia Graham, presumably on Carvanista's ship, or another Lupari ship, by the looks of it. I mean, it's so vague. We know that Carvanista is in this episode, so it makes sense for it to be his ship, but equally they could just be reusing the set as another sort of generic Lupari ship that this character has found herself on or broken into. I mean, I think gut feeling is that she's a goodie because she's got a gun and she's seen sort of fighting Cybermen. Obviously, Cybermen are bad guys, so that would immediately suggest that she is on our side and the Doctor's side. But equally, we've got so little information about this character that it's anyone's guess, really, as to what role she plays in the episode. Obviously, the elephant in the room there as well is the Cybermen, who I think are just going to be sort of cameoing here as a sort of generic alien invader or whatever. I don't think the Cybermen are going to have a bigger role to play in the overall Flux storyline. I could be wrong, but the vibe I get from the promo images and from the trailer footage is that they are just essentially there as sort of foot soldiers to be shot down by Thadia Graham's character and basically just establish her as a good guy, as a hero, and to show her sort of doing heroic things. And I guess as well, it just makes sense to show another one of the show's big bads sort of taking advantage of the Flux. Because of course, you do sort of think throughout all of this, where are the Daleks? Why are they not taking advantage? Where are the Cybermen, etc.? So perhaps this scene is the show's answer to that question. I do get the feeling that some big stuff is going to go down, some revelations or game changes. I mean, obviously this is the halfway point of the series, so I'd expect an especially sort of game-changing cliffhanger to come at the end of this episode. A real sort of mid-series shock, like the Fugitive Doctor in Series 12. It has also been said by Matt Strevens in that same Doctor Who magazine interview that this episode connects back to episodes 1 and 2 and all the Flux stuff set up so far in a very unique and very serialised way, and in a way that a sort of normal standalone episode wouldn't be able to do. So it does sound like this episode is going to be very arc heavy, it's going to connect back to everything from Flux, and possibly from before as well, the Timeless Child stuff, the Division, obviously because of the guns. I mean, also we get that sequence as well in the trailers of the Doctor in this sort of purpley vortex, and one shot in particular at the end of the TV trailer, which shows her looking very pained and anguished and sort of fighting for her life, which is very reminiscent of the stuff from the Timeless Children of her in The Matrix. So yeah, it does look like some big stuff is going to happen in this episode, but not quite sure what. I think they are holding a lot back, and I think the way this episode is going to be presented to the viewer overall is going to take advantage of that and be very weird and strange and possibly non-linear as well, and just generally not really give you a lot of context and then pull the rug from under our feet and leave us with some massive game-changing cliffhanger. But I've rambled on for long enough. What do you think is going to happen in Once Upon Time? What are your last minute predictions and thoughts and theories as to the events that are going to unfold in this episode? Do let me know in the comments section below in these final few hours before the episode starts. If you're watching this on the day of broadcast, if you're watching this after the day of broadcast, then of course you will know what happens in this episode and whether any of my predictions were correct or not. So be sure to comment on that as well, I guess, if that floats your boat. But otherwise, that does it for my preview of Once Upon Time. If you are watching this on the day of broadcast, then enjoy the episode later today and stay tuned to the channel for my reaction to it and other coverage as well, like everything you missed and all that sort of stuff in the coming days. Please do like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more Doctor Who Flux related content. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.